Hi, everybody, and good afternoon. Welcome to our week number 2 Twitch live stream for my research methods class. Looks like everybody's just kind of getting logged in and joining me here, but I'm glad to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Can someone let me know in the chat, is everything coming through okay on your end? Are you able to hear me and see me okay? Just making sure. Great. Thank you, Grace. I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me know. If you're just joining me, make sure you get your name in the chat at some point, unless you're subscribed, and then of course you don't need to worry about it. But what I want to do today is I want to go over a little bit of feedback from week number 1, since week number 1 is in the books and officially behind us. And then I will go over some reminders for week number 2. We'll look at everything we have going on this week, give you that Twitch extra credit question for this week, some reminders, and then I will see if you have any questions for me. So should be close to 30 minutes or so, a little shorter than last week, since we don't have to go over the whole setup of the class. But I'm glad that you all are here with me, for those of you who are watching it live. And I'm glad, hopefully everyone is doing okay, right? We've had a very eventful week since I saw you last, or since we last spoke. We had a tropical storm hurricane. We had an earthquake. I heard somebody say the other day that we had a hurricane or an earthicane. It was definitely been eventful, and now it's just back to hot. So hopefully everyone is doing all right, no damage or anything from all the rain and the earthquake. But yeah, we're in week number 2. It's hard to believe that we're kind of pushing our way through the semester here. So let's go ahead and go over to Canvas together and take a look at what we have going on. So week number 1, as I said, is over, right? So we finished week number 1, and what you will see is that typically on Mondays, I will grade everything from the week that is finished or passed. So on Monday, I did grade all of the discussions. I sent out an email with some kind of general feedback and comments. And then I like to go over that just a tiny bit here as well, just to make sure that you kind of understand what I'm looking for, and to review those concepts just a tiny bit. So that's what we'll start with. And so if we click on week number 1 here, there we go. So week number 1, we were looking at chapter 1 and discussion 1. A handful of you did the extra credit. Not a ton of you, maybe about 10, 12 of you or so. I hope you take advantage of this throughout the semester. Again, those points are definitely going to add up, so hopefully that's helpful for you. If you missed a couple of points on a discussion, it would make up for that. If you missed some points on an exam or a homework assignment, so definitely take advantage of these live streams and that extra credit as we go through. But discussion number 1 was the one thing that you really had that was due last week. And this one was all about, psychology as a way of thinking. What does it mean to be a critical, smart consumer of information? Looking at some headlines and critiquing them. Overall, I was really impressed, and some really interesting little articles that some of you found, which were kind of fun. I wanted to go read them. If I had had more time, I probably would have gone and read the whole thing. But a lot of you did a beautiful job of finding an article and talking about what it means to be a critical or smart consumer of information. That was a big focus of last week, right? Questioning information, always being a little bit skeptical. And I love that so many of you took these articles, and rather than accepting them at face value, you critiqued their claims, you critiqued the expertise of the person who was writing it, or if they had an agenda. Really, really nicely done. The biggest reason that people lost points was just kind of giving me a summary rather than critiquing. There were a handful of you who, instead of being a critical consumer, kind of just summarized the article and said that you agreed with it or disagreed with it. I was looking for you more to critique it. So, they're making these claims and they don't seem like they're valid, or they don't have the expertise to do that, or it's not really something that they can make. There's other things that could explain it. That was the biggest reason. The other reason that some people lost points was not replying to a classmate. So remember that with everyone, if you look at the instructions up here, the discussions are worth 15 points, right? So 13 points for your responses to my questions, and then 2 points for your responses to a classmate or a peer. So just make sure you do that every week. It is kind of an easy 2 points to get, so you don't want to miss them. But otherwise, again, I was really impressed. A lot of you did a beautiful job. And if you are wondering, how do I find my grade? How do I find my feedback? In the announcement that I sent out for week number 2, I did give you a link here to grades, timing, finding your feedback, and using them as a learning opportunity. I made a little video showing you how to find your grades. It's really brief. It's only about 2 minutes, but it shows you where to find any comments or feedback that I gave you. If you didn't see it, this is something you might want to watch. But always use these as a learning opportunity. And I feel like I'll probably say this all semester. But if you didn't get full points on the discussion, make sure that you give me a little bit more this week, right? Make sure that you elaborate a little more, go into a little bit more detail. If you got full points, keep it up. Keep doing the same thing. If you forgot the peer response, make sure to do that. So just kind of use it as a chance to evaluate, what you're doing. You'll get used to, my grading and criteria and what I'm looking for. But if you did miss a few points and you want more feedback or more information, you're always welcome to email me. Otherwise, in general, people who miss points just didn't quite give me enough, or with that specific discussion, didn't critique the article. So again, week number 1 is now behind us, and we move into week number 2. And this week we start chapter 2. It's always nice when the chapter and the week coincide. That's not always the case, but it is this week. And I did split chapter 2 up into 2 parts because the first part of the chapter and the second part have a very different focus. And I wanted to spend some time as we're still kind of building up to getting into the core of our course. So for chapter 2, this is part 1. So it's pages 23 to 38. And as usual, you're going to want to do 3 things with every chapter. So you're going to want to read that part in the textbook. And then you're going to want to go through the lecture and, of course, watch the lecture video. So after you've read it in the book, make sure you click on the lecture link here. And as usual, you can listen to it or you can read it. The first page are the objectives and then a summary of what we're going to cover. I always try and put in a couple of the important or helpful pictures from the chapter. Page 2 is always going to be beyond the book. So again, you can listen to it if you would like or if you miss the sound of my voice. But this one is all about science versus pseudoscience. And I'm spending a lot of time here because it's important to start thinking like a scientist and thinking like a psychologist. So here are some things that dictate whether it's science or pseudoscience. Evaluating the credibility of sources, which is something that we're kind of focusing on this week as well, and then a little video related to that. So again, if there is a link in here or a video, make sure that you explore it, click on it, it's going to help you. And then the last page, as always, is going to be key terms and review. So these are the terms from chapter 2, part 1, that you'll need to know for the first exam. So some people like to study 1 week at a time. And if that's the case, these are the terms from this week that you would want to start preparing and focusing on. So click on all those links, watch all the videos, explore everything. Don't forget to also watch the lecture video, right? So this is me. I try to keep these kind of brief, but it's me lecturing to some PowerPoint slides, trying to help you with understanding the materials. You might consider taking notes, as this will definitely, appear on the exam. But these videos, I try and post them on YouTube whenever possible, just so it's easy for you to access. But make sure that you are watching them. And once you've read the chapter, read the lecture, and went through the lecture video, you can do discussion number 2. So let's take a look at discussion 2 together. As always, you'll have my instructions at the top, right? So for this one, you have my little introduction video that's right here. Make sure that you're being really detailed in your responses. Give me enough, right? Make sure that you're showing off your understanding and comprehension. Think about these as like mini papers if that helps you. Don't forget to read through some of your classmates' responses and reply to one of them. You need to reply to at least one to get those 2 points. And in total, the discussion, again, is worth 15 points. 13 for your responses to my questions and 2 for your responses to a classmate. So watch my video. I always try and give you some helpful tips and reminders and suggestions if that's helpful. I hope it's helpful. And then here are the questions for you. So once you are ready, you're going to read this little article and excerpt on science versus pseudoscience. So what I have in here, and I did read these if you'd like to listen to it, but here's an article about what is science and pseudoscience. Here's one about the demarcation problem, and then distinguishing science from pseudoscience. So 3 kind of very brief articles that are all related to what we're covering this week. So you're going to read through those and then answer these 3 questions. Number 1, what are some of the key differences between science and pseudoscience. And I want you to provide and explain at least 2 different differences. You're welcome to do more, but at least 2. What is the demarcation problem and who first identified it? And then number 3, what are some of the problems with the science versus pseudoscience classification? Provide and explain a minimum of 2 of those problems. And again, make sure you're elaborating. You could give me examples if that helps you, but you're elaborating and describing kind of based on this idea of science versus pseudoscience and demarcation and so on. So as always, again, it's worth 15 points. Definitely put some time into that. When you're ready, you hit reply. Don't forget to reply to a classmate. And then this week, we just have the extra credit that's on here as well. Of course, I will post the recording of this a little bit later once I've downloaded it and uploaded it to YouTube. You always have your little wrap-up checklist here as well. Next week, we do add an element of a homework assignment. So next week, our live stream might take a little longer as I go through that first homework assignment and first survey where I'm just kind of checking in with you. But for this week, it's kind of a normal, easy week in a way, kind of a lighter week of reading the chapter, reading the lecture, watching the video, and completing the discussion. So let me see if you have any questions for me for the moment. Otherwise, I do have a couple of reminders for you before I give you that extra credit question. Again, kind of short and sweet today. Some weeks will be a little longer than others, depending on what we have going on. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, let me give you a couple of quick reminders. The first one, I will remind you every week, if you could take a moment and just make sure that you are subscribed if possible. Again, I'd really rather you not pay any money for this, but it does save me a ton of time. And starting tomorrow, I will be coaching 2 soccer teams to add to my already busy schedule. So I really appreciate those of you who are subscribed and figured that out. It saves me a bunch of time, so thank you. And if you are watching this later as a recording, you can still get the 2 points of extra credit and answer the question on Canvas as long as you did subscribe on Twitch. That way I can monitor that you watched it. So if you haven't done that, please try and take a minute. It's good for 30 days. And so when we hit that first month mark, I will remind you and show you how to renew it. But for now, I appreciate those of you who've taken the time to figure that out. So thank you so much. The other reminder I have for you, if you're looking at the schedule, I'll put this here in the chat. Our week number 3 Twitch live stream will be on Wednesday, August 30th at 12:30 p.m. Okay, so our next Twitch live stream will be next week on Wednesday at 12:30. Trying to stick with that consistent time so that hopefully it's predictable. As long as nothing comes up, we will stay with that. So I hope you can join me. And again, I understand a lot of you have classes and work and other responsibilities, which is why these will always be recorded. And if you are sad that you might not get that extra credit, figure out the subscription and you can still do that. The last thing I have for you is that extra credit and to show you how to answer it. So let me put that in the chat. And I did type this up, which I will normally do just to help myself out a little bit. So this is the week number, wow, I can't type and talk. Week number 2, I'll get there. Twitch extra credit question. Okay, so I'm putting this in the chat and then I'll explain and show you where. For week number 2, describe one of the ways that intuition is biased and give me a specific example. So what is one of the ways that intuition can be biased, right? It's very pseudoscientific, and give me an example. And when you're ready to answer that, you'll go to Canvas. And since we're in week number 2, you'll click on optional Twitch extra credit number 2 right here. And then up here at the top, you can click on start assignment. And that's going to bring up this little box where you can type your response. And once you're satisfied with your answer, you can hit submit. You get the confetti burst and rocket ships. You never know what it's going to be. It was thumbs up in my last class. So definitely take advantage of these. If you do every single one of them, right, it will add up to over 30 points of extra credit. So if you're feeling a little bummed that you didn't get full points on the first discussion, or, maybe you don't do great on the first exam, this is definitely going to help make up for that. So please take advantage of it. It's something that I wanted to offer to all of you. So thank you for those of you joining me live or watching this later. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. Otherwise, get going on week number 2. Again, make sure that you have found your grades and stuff from last week. And if you have any questions about your grade, you can always reach out This week, read that first part of chapter 2, get through the lecture video, the discussion, and then of course you can do that extra credit if you want. And I'll have the recording of this up a little bit later today after it's downloaded and uploaded and all that fun stuff. So again, I'm at like 20 minutes, kind of short and sweet today, but I will hang out for a little while. If any of you do have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, get going on week 2. Hang in there. I know everybody in person today looked a little tired, right? I think the first 2 weeks are a little exhausting as we settle back in, but hang in there. I hope you're all doing well. And I will hang out, as I said, for the next like 8 minutes or so if you have any thoughts or questions. So otherwise, I'll see you all next week. Have a wonderful week. I am going to minimize this just so I'm not staring at myself, but I hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you as well. I really appreciate your company. I know I can't see you, but I'm glad that you're here. I can see that there are like 12 of you in here, so thank you for joining me. And I will see you on Wednesday next week. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you as well. You're welcome. Thank you. And I am still here. Like I said, I will hang out for a little bit. If you have any questions for me, I'm definitely here. And I am still here just to, again, remind you if you think of anything. And if not, if you think of something later, you can always email me, of course, later in the week. That's totally fine. But I am here if you think of anything right now. All right, so it looks like everybody has logged out. It looks like it's just me and maybe one other person in here. So I'm going to close this up so I can start the upload download. But if you do think of any questions, again, feel free to reach out. Have a wonderful week. And I will see you on Wednesday next week for week number 3.